Hello, everyone. Welcome to Teachable University. This is Frank Nunez, and in this lecture today, we're going to be discussing how to observe a new reality. And now, as we embark into 2023, it's really thinking about how we can entertain new thoughts and new ideas about the kind of life we want to live and what kind of goals we want to achieve, and really how we can be our best self. And it starts with then observing our thoughts and actions and whether or not our thoughts and actions and behaviors are producing the desired circumstances that we were like or are producing the desired results. And for many of us, myself included, oftentimes we tend to simply react to the events that happen in our external environment. And by observing a new reality, however, by observing our thoughts and behaviors, we begin to become self-aware and to use our analytical reasoning skills to produce more desirable results by being intentional with what it is that we want to produce and creating congruency where our mind and body are one, where consciously and subconsciously we're aligned in moving in the direction of where we want to go. So that's when we enter states of flow. So as Joe Dispenza says from his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, only when subjects held both heightened emotions and clear objectives in alignment were they able to produce the intended effect. An intentional thought needs an energizer, a catalyst, and that energy is an elevated emotion. Heart and mind working together, feelings and thoughts unified into a state of being. If a state of being can wind and unwind strands of DNA in 2 minutes, what does it say about our ability to create reality? So what Dispenza is saying is that in order for us to create a desired result, a particular goal, or to see some sort of positive change in our life, it requires a heightened emotion, meaning that we have to inject feeling into this entire process. And I've said this in the past couple of lectures that we can't intellectualize the process of transformation and improving our lives, whatever aspect of our lives we want to change. We can't simply intellectualize this and think about it. We have to feel it with heightened emotion. And we do that by feeling as if the wish is fulfilled now. We're no longer waiting for something outside of us to cause us to feel a certain way. We're being intentional and proactive in feeling empowered and inspired and abundant and happy now. And when the heart and mind are working together, mind and body are working together, where there's congruency, we're not just consciously, but on a subconscious level, your beliefs are aligned with what it is that you want to achieve in any aspect of your life. When there's that congruency, when we're intentional with what the kind of life we want to live, and we have energy behind it, we feel euphoric and happy that regardless of what our circumstances are, we're alive and we have the ability to change. And that life is filled with possibility. That's when we can start creating a new reality, but it requires that heightened emotion. That means using our physiology, the way we move, the way we breathe, and the way we carry ourselves that can move us in a better direction and towards the reality that we want. And that is one of the foundations of observing our new reality, is that we begin feeling as if the wish is fulfilled. Using our imagination to entertain new horizons and imagining that what we want is already here. And imagine what that would feel like if we accomplished our goals, or at least feel like that what we want is possible. And that is extremely a powerful exercise if you're able to harness that skill or master that skill. So it's Thomas Troward who says that therefore, whatever may be the nature of our anxiety, we should endeavor to dispel it by the consideration that there may be already existing other facts we do not know of, which will produce a different result from the one we fear. And that in any case, there is a power which can produce new facts in answer to our appeal of it. So Troward makes a great point here. And this excerpt from Troward caught my attention because oftentimes the reason why we may be struggling with a specific aspect of our lives, whether it's relationships, financially, career-wise, or health, or any other aspect, is simply because there's information that we're not aware of. So there's this term that ignorance is bliss, and I would argue that's absolute nonsense. Ignorance is pain. And the less knowledge we have, the more pain we're going to experience, because we're totally unaware that there's information out there that if we simply utilize or become aware of and implement in our lives can dramatically improve our lives for the better. And this is a subjective exercise. That's why it's so important to read and educate yourself and really, like, for example, with this lecture, to listen to this lecture several times so that it becomes integrated as part of your personality and your behavior, where it becomes second nature. But it's not just knowing something, it's beginning to take action and utilizing what it is that you learn. So whatever it is that you're experiencing right now, whatever setbacks you may be having or issues that may be happening in your life, for the most part, it could be because there's simply facts that you do not know. That once you understand these facts or acquire new knowledge and new skills, you can produce entirely different results. And then once you move in that direction and you acquire more knowledge and implementing that knowledge, integrating that into your life, then there is this power, this universal intelligence or God, this energy that can produce new facts in answer to our appeal to it. Through the power of synchronicity, where new relationships, new opportunities can arise. Chance occurrences and events that help line things up for you as you begin this journey in the direction of the life that you want to live. And I've seen that happen in my own life, where when you're no longer trying to force something to happen, and you begin to feel that what you want is possible, and begin to apply new knowledge, more empowering knowledge to help you move in the direction of your dream life, things seem to line themselves up for you. And that's when life really becomes exciting. And again, to quote Troward from his book, The Door Lectures on Mental Science, which is a great read, Troward says, "My mind is a center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression. And this means the production of something beyond what has gone before, something entirely new, not included in the past experience, though proceeding out of it by an orderly sequence of growth. Therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature, it must operate in the same manner with me. Consequently, in my own special world, of which I am the center, it will move forward to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that have gone before. So with creating and observing a new reality, we must create something new. You cannot expect to create a new reality by thinking and acting in the same ways that have produced the same predictable results. It requires then that we think in new ways. And that means disrupting the old thought patterns that have helped create our current circumstances. This is not easy, of course. This is where much of the hard work resides when it comes to personal transformation, and improving our lives. It means being intentional and constantly becoming aware of our own thought processes, where if we see that we're indulging in disempowering thoughts and behaviors, we interrupt this mental process and say, no, we're not going to go there. I'm going to pivot and move it in another direction. And that is part of the divine. The divine being that you're no longer indulging in negative behaviors and negative emotions such as frustration, anger, and fear. Where even though you may feel these emotions, you continue to push forward anyway and get uncomfortable and make new choices and decisions outside of your typical personality. When you create a new personality, you create a new personal reality. And then you can begin living in the divine. When you rise above the old thought processes that have held you back and move in a new direction that produces new conditions that you may not have never experienced before. And once you experience these new conditions, that is the catalyst that inspires you to move forward. Because once you get a taste of the idea that you have the power to propel yourself in a new environment that is more desirable to your liking, there's no going back. And then it becomes a snowball effect. So again, to quote Troward, if you take your own knowledge of law as the starting point of the creative action in your personal life, you have inverted the true order, and the logical result from your premises will be to bring the whole burden upon yourself like 1,000 of bricks. But if you take the all-givingness of the creative spirit as your starting point, then everything else will fall into a harmonious order. And all you will have to do is to receive and use what you receive, asking divine guidance to use it rightly. So when we start entering these flow states, and I mentioned about congruency, when no longer we're trying to force something to happen, we're in the present moment, embracing the process of whatever it is that we're trying to do. There's that sweet spot where once we stay in flow more often and we focus on what it is that we want and live in the end, as Neville says, then this harmonious order begins to happen on a psychological level with flow. This is order of consciousness, as Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi discusses in his book on flow. There's an order of consciousness where you're in this zone, where everything seems to fall into place, where you feel godlike, where you feel like you're invincible and can do anything. And a lot of athletes describe being in this experience when they're in this mental state of flow. And when you're in these flow states more often, there's this harmonious order on a psychological level, but also on a synchronistic level, where things seem to line themselves up for you. As you begin to ask and be prepared to receive and be willing to receive good that can arrive in your life. And all of us, and many of us, I'm guilty of this as well, seem to be hesitant to want to receive good in our lives. Be prepared to receive. Oftentimes what happens when we receive a compliment, we become bashful and actually don't accept that compliment that we get because we feel embarrassed or we don't feel worthy of that compliment. But how would we feel if we give a compliment to somebody and they don't appreciate it? We would feel bad. So if we are to create this harmonious order, if we are to observe a new reality, we must be prepared to receive the good. Ask and it shall be given. Thus, be prepared to receive. That is a great starting point when it comes to observing a new reality. So Maxwell Maltz, in his book Psycho-Cybernetics, which I've referenced often, says that you act and feel not according to what things are really like, but according to the image your mind holds of what they are like. You have certain mental images of yourself, your world, and the people around you. And you behave as though these images were the truth, the reality, rather than the things they represent. So oftentimes, the problem with observing in your reality is the issue of perception. It is the issue of perception, where we act and feel in ways that aren't necessarily based on reality, but based on our own beliefs, perceptions, and images and ideas that we hold in our minds that aren't necessarily accurate. How often have we visualized or imagined something or worry about a worst-case scenario that has never materialized? Or keep reliving past experiences that are no longer relevant to our present circumstances? How many of us operate based on self-limiting beliefs that may not be necessarily accurate and represent who you really are? So then, once we understand this, then, that our perceptions aren't a necessary accurate representation of the world and of ourselves, we can create new perceptions, new images, new ideas, and new beliefs that are much more empowering. Images of success, images of having perhaps material possessions that you've always wanted, living in a new home, or having a new career relationship. Or images of more spiritual empowerment and rebirth. Images of better health, of better relationships, and living of a better life. And to begin to question whether or not our self-limiting beliefs are even accurate. And thus pivot and begin acting and feeling in new ways where our dream life is possible. So we can change, and we understand this thanks to the power of neuroplasticity, where the brain can change depending on what we impress upon it. And again, it's about observation and self-awareness, or a term called metacognition, where we think about how we're thinking. We disrupt these negative thought patterns. We stay focused and aware that the way we're thinking and acting and feeling is now working, and that we want to start making new choices and decisions that can help propel us in a better direction. So whatever you're feeling right now, whatever negative emotions you're feeling, they are more than likely not an accurate perception of yourself in the world. And that we can change our perceptions. Thus, by changing our perceptions, we change our reality. So then, to quote Maxwell Maltz again, Our present thinking, our mental habits, our attitudes towards past experiences, and our attitudes towards the future all have an influence upon old recorded neural engrams or programs. The old can be changed, modified, or replaced by our present thinking. Again, we understand that now thanks to neuroplasticity. So our present thinking, we can imagine our brain as like a warehouse of all the experiences that we've had in our entire life. Memories, ideas, images based on our and beliefs that we've created based on using our five senses and interacting with our external environment. And chances are many of your present thinking or your behaviors and your personality is based on your reaction and perceptions of past experiences. And when we keep doing the same thing over and over again based on these old recorded programs, then unfortunately we create the same predictable results. But thus, we can change these programs. We can change our present thinking into a new mental model where no longer we are entertaining the same typical tired old thoughts and actions that gave us the same predictable results. We can change depending on what we impress on our brains. And we create this impression by using feeling, injecting feeling into the affirmations and images and words and behaviors that we will begin to now entertain that are much more empowering. So a very good example is, say you want to lose weight. By going to the gym, you begin to feel healthy. You begin to feel empowered. You feel physically fit with every weight that you lift, with every step that you take, whether you're going in the gym or you're going for a walk or going for a run. Or when you engage in new relationships and new conversations, you straighten your back, you stand up straight, you speak in a louder voice, you create a sense of authority physically in a physiological way. And this can disrupt these old negative thought patterns when you begin to now think, and not just think, but to act physically in a new way, in a more empowering way. And this is one of the best ways to help disrupt these old programs. So to quote Eric Butterworth from his book, Discover the Power Within You, A Guide to the Unexplored Depths Within. It's a great book. I just discovered him recently. He said that man is not in the world to set it right, but to see it rightly. And right seen is the passport from illusion to the heaven of accomplishment. If you want to change the world or to be an influence for such a change, you must begin within yourself by changing the way you see the world. Get back to the principle, a whole universe, a whole man. So what Butterworth is saying is that oftentimes we want to change the world. And I hear this a lot in entrepreneurial circles and in personal growth, especially with a younger generation of college students and entrepreneurs who want to change the world. But you can't change the world unless you begin to change yourself. And when you start changing yourself, when you work on yourself and not become overly fixed by what's happening outside of you, then you can begin the process of changing the world by changing your perceptions. Look at the beginning of this quote. Man is not in the world to set it right, but to see it rightly. And right seen is a passport from illusion to the heaven of accomplishment. It is about perception. We change the world by changing our perception of it. We can't change the world by simply focusing on what's happening outside of us through force. When we try to force things to happen, force events and circumstances to occur, we only dig ourselves in a deeper hole. But when we change our perception of what is happening around us and change the perception we hold of ourselves, then we can begin to change the world and create a much better life. And it was Rollo May in his book, The Courage to Create, who says that human freedom involves our capacity to pause between the stimulus and response, and in that pause to choose the one response toward which we wish to throw our weight. The capacity to create ourselves based upon this freedom is inseparable from consciousness or self-awareness. So in observing a new reality or creating a new reality, we must take the time to pause, to disconnect from the constant stimulus of our external environment, from our cell phones, social media, and social interactions for a period of time. I'm not suggesting you be a recluse, but that is why meditation, walking in nature, And self-exploration is so important because to change what's going on outside of us, we must change what is happening inside of us. What is occurring in our circumstances is a mirror or reflection of what is happening within our own minds. And when we start to create ourselves based upon this freedom of removing these self-limiting beliefs, unshackling them, and observing a new reality from the base of feeling as if the wish is fulfilled, living in the end. We're not worried about how a particular circumstance is going to occur. We're already living in the end. We're feeling as if what we want is already here now. Through this process of consciousness or self-awareness. And there's a constant theme here from what Maxwell Maltz is saying, Rollo May, Thomas Trower, Neville, and others. It is being self-aware, intentional, living in congruency, being aware that what you're doing right now is not working, and that in order to change, you must begin to think and act in new ways. And by observing into being what it is that you want to see in your life. And that is the power of changing our perceptions and using observation to create a new reality. Thank you so much for listening to this lecture, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.